Margaret Barker's here in Oxford for a few days, teaching some lectures at St. Anne's College. And we've been in contact by email, and I had the pleasure today of having lunch with her at the Eagle and Child, which is the old pub in which the Inklings used to meet. So we had a very lengthy, interesting conversation, had some good food there, and she was gracious enough to allow me to videotape the lunch. So I've edited it a bit to get rid of the, past the salt type of conversation, but essentially have recorded here the substance of our lunch conversation. Very fascinating, gracious lady, and hope some of you will enjoy this. The lighting is a little bit bad because of the darkness of the room, and we had some good light coming in through the window. The sound is also sometimes a little bit vague because of the background noise of the restaurant. I've moved a couple clips around if we talked about different topics and kind of came back to another one that we discussed earlier. I moved them around a bit in the order. Other than that, basically, you've got the lunch conversation here that we had. So what got you interested in temple studies?
It's so long ago, I honestly don't know. It just kind of happened. I was interested in my student days, very much interested in the Enoch books. No one was interested in them in those days. And I thought, there's something here. And I got interested and spent my sort of spare time as an undergraduate. I was always a bit of a bookworm. And Enoch led me to the temple. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of happened from there. It's quite difficult looking back because it was all just something that was happening. I was pursuing something that interested me, and I just carried on pursuing it. And I'd met.
Now, where did you go to school?
I was at school in the South of England, in Bournemouth, in Church of England School for Ladies, where we wore white gloves and Panama hats in the summer and sang psalms. And we always had to hold our psalters in our left hands. It was a long time before I got out of that habit.
Really? When was this?
When I was at school in the early 60s in Bournemouth. And it was interesting, it was the end of the era when English girls were being groomed to run the empire, or to be the wives of those who ran the empire, And so it was a pretty dated education now. We were taught all sorts of things, and a lot of the girls at the school were boarding. This was slept there, and they flew her to various parts of the empire during their holidays. So it was a different world.
Yeah.
And
did you study Hebrew at that time?
I taught myself Hebrew when I was a child.
Really?
I started teaching myself Hebrew when I was 13. Well, so that's not a child, really. But my birthday presents when I was 13, I had book tokens and money to buy myself something, and I bought myself Teach Yourself Hebrew and Samuel Baxter's Hebrew Lexicon.
That's amazing. So did you ever do formal Hebrew study later? Or
yes, I did in Cambridge, and that's when I was an undergraduate. And that's when I discovered that self-taught Hebrew is like a garden full of weeds, and I've got all sorts of bad habits, some of which I still have, which is quite embarrassing really, because I always confuse the Hebrew S's, and I know if ever I'm performing in public and having to write something on a board and there's an S in it, I get this cold feeling thinking, am I going to get the wrong sort of S? And it's just something, I guess it's too old to change now, so my Hebrew spelling mistakes invariably involve S's.
I suspect the ancient scribes had the same problem
sometimes.
sometimes.
I feel for them. When people talk about variants and scribal errors, I think, you don't know what it's like. But I certainly do have this, kind of cold feeling comes over me. There's an S coming up. So I enjoy doing it. It meant when I got to Cambridge, I had enough Hebrew to survive, and I didn't have to spend a lot of my first year learning Hebrew like the rest of my year did. And that meant that I had time for other things. And that was, obviously I'd done Greek as well, so that was a good investment.
Did you plan a career as a minister, or you're a lay minister, right?
No, not at all. Because, of course, when I was a student, that wasn't an option. Women were excluded.
Right.
I did it because I was interested in it, and my father very wisely said, well, you better do something useful as well. And so my sixth form at school, I did Latin and Greek, but I also did mathematics. And so when I was, I've always earned a living until I became a full-time writer and researcher, always earned a living teaching maths. Because that's a practical thing you can do.
Yeah.
So I'm technically, I have a pension as a teacher of mathematics.
At what? At a high school, grade school, what?
No,
University?
I'm just up to the age of 16.
Uh-huh.
So nothing I taught was at all exalted. I mean, it's an exaggeration to call it mathematics. It was arithmetic, basically, basic science. Yeah. But there was always a shortage of people who would teach maths in school. And I was always able to do part-time work, 3 days a week or something like that, at times when it wasn't available in other subjects, because people were grateful to have a maths teacher. And that was nice, because I had time for research, and that's what made it possible. But I have never been a professional scholar in the sense that I earn my living from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, how did you manage? You've got some children, right? How did you manage family and research and work?
Well, you have to be very organised, extremely organised. And my first book is actually dedicated to my domestic equipment. It's dedicated to my washing machine and my refrigerator. Because you can't, you've got to allow machines to do whatever you can allow them to do. You can't have machines looking after your children, but
Right.
you can have machines to cook your food and wash your clothes and do those sort of things. So, and when just home freezers were around, I could cook ahead and we could live out of the freezer. So, modern domestic equipment actually made research a possibility.
Right. It's in a sense you're getting your own servant. You can multiply your labor
That's right.
and
That's
free
right.
up some of your time.
That's right, you have to free up your time and you have to be organised, and you can't go in for kind of fancy cooking. I didn't do things like iced cakes and decorated salads. You can't do that sort of thing. And it's well known that I never ironed the back of my husband's shirt. There's a very famous picture of him which the family always laughs at, but he's holding our first child, aged about 3 months, and he's proud daddy. And he's got Hugh over his shoulder, and the photograph is taken of the back of my husband's shirt, and little Hugh over, and of course the back of the shirt hasn't been ironed. And, that says all, really.
That's
But certainly that picture's famous.